Hey, welcome everyone to a review of the Sennheiser HD250BT wireless on-the-ear headphones. Now if you want to see the written version of this review, you can find a link to my website in the video description. So these are inexpensive, budget-friendly headphones priced here in Canada at $89, and over in the United States is priced in a reasonable $69. These are wireless-only headphones. They do not support a wired connection at all. And in case you're wondering if you can use them when the battery is dead, you cannot. When they are being charged, they automatically shut down. You can only use them again when they're unplugged. It's using Bluetooth 5.0 for wireless technology, and in the manual, it lists a range of about 32 feet. And in my testing, I was able to get about the same range, but with one wall in between, so slightly better than what Sennheiser claims. It does support dual connectivity, so you can have it connected to two devices at the exact same time. So a great example is when I have it connected to my computer as one device and my cell phone as another. If I'm listening to music on my computer and my cell phone rings, the music on my computer will pause and I can quickly answer the call. In terms of how many devices it can keep in memory before you have to repair them all over again, the documentation says you can store up to 8 devices in memory. In my testing I got 4, which is still a solid amount. There are no accessories included at all in the box, just the USB cable. It's a USB-A to USB-C. Unfortunately, it's not pure USB-C, which is a bummer. That cable is measuring in about 22 inches. In terms of how it looks, it's not the best looking. The body and frame of the headband look unique due to the frame coming out of the ear cups, which is kind of similar to the Sennheiser Momentum 3. Although I'm not a fan of the wire coming out of the ear cups and how it's visible. It looks incredibly tacky, as if Sennheiser ran out of material with their budget to produce these headphones. Not a good look. There's no folding design, so the headphones cannot collapse in. It's just a solid frame. Now in terms of comfort when wearing them, within the first 5 minutes, they start to make my ears feel a little warm. They don't get sweaty, they don't hurt, but yeah, warm. So not the most comfortable experience you'll have. So just want to point that out. And when it comes to wearing them with glasses, which I have tested as well, again, not that comfortable. The odd thing is my ears don't get as warm when wearing glasses. I think the frame of the glasses kind of point my ears out slightly at the top, which kind of pivots the ear cups this way slightly. But then you have the irritation that the ear cups are kind of poking my frame into my head a little bit more. So it's uncomfortable with glasses in a different way. Another big letdown for comfort is the interior of the headband, which I'll cover very shortly and explain why. The headband flex itself is not too bad. It's not too tight, so that's not part of the concern. It really comes down to the cushioning. And the ear cup cushioning is soft, but a little too firm. And I think that's the most likely reason for why my ears get warm. And going back to the interior of the headband, as I mentioned earlier, it's not comfortable because there's no padding whatsoever. So if you're bald, these can be very annoying and very discomforting. In fact, even with a full head of hair for myself, they're not comfortable. They kind of poke into my head ever so slightly. It's not a good experience. I'm not sure why at this budget Sennheiser had to cheap out. They could have put some padding right here at the dead center, maybe 2-3 inches wide if they're concerned about budget costs, but you can get far more cheaper headphones on the internet if you look around with some significant padding here at the top. This is rather inexcusable from Sennheiser. The headband adjustment is done in notches. It's not a slider mechanism. The ear cup rotation isn't that much, but it's just enough to get the job done, as it can go up, down, forward, and back to accommodate most heads and ear shapes. Working out with these could work well, and the fact that they don't shift around at all, like bopping my head, they hardly move at all. But there's a few problems here. The first is, of course, that they're on the ear cups. So of course, when you are working out, your ears are going to sweat very quickly and very much so. The other thing I mentioned is just even sitting around for a few minutes, it makes my ears get warm. So imagine what's going to happen when you're working out. They only come in a black color and they're weighing in a very light 125 grams. The body construction does feel rather weak. Despite its inexpensive price tag, it feels like something almost half the price. It's a little disappointing. And according to the manual, you should keep them dry at all times, which, makes me assume that they're not dust and water resistant at all. So be cautious with them. Sennheiser did not sell official replacement ear cup units, so if you tear them or get them worn out, you can get them from third-party sellers. I found some online. When resting on my neck, if you're out and about and on the go, looking left and right is not a problem because the ear cups are really small. Looking down is a bit of a challenge because the ear cup here, the curve is rather strong. There is one annoyance though, is that they're not comfortable on my neck because again, the interior of the headband has no cushioning at all. It kind of scrapes against my neck. You're better off doing something like this or kind of like this. It won't annoy you as much. All controls on the back of the right ear cup. The top button is for volume up and the bottom button is for volume down. The middle button has a bunch of commands associated with it. It's used for powering the device on and off. Pressing and holding it will enter Bluetooth pairing mode. One tap to play pause your media, double tap to go to the next track, or triple tap to go to the previous track. It's also used for phone calls to single tap, answer or hang up a call, and some other functions available regarding phone calls. I'm not a fan of this though, because I'm not sure why all these commands have to be associated with a single button. Why couldn't it make it simpler, like say, pressing and holding volume up will go to the next track. Pressing and holding volume down will go to the previous track. I'm not sure why that has to force the user to memorize this many commands on a single button. There's 3 other things not available, not necessarily required at this price point, but just wanted to mention them. The first is that if you have it paired with a smartphone, it will not activate your voice assistant. There's no button to do that, to say turn on Google Assistant or Siri. The next thing is that there's no side tone. Again, not a big deal, but for some people they like that. That's not available on these headphones. And the last thing is passive play pause. So for example, when you're listening to music or content, when the headphones on, it'll just play. When you take them off, it'll automatically pause your content. When you put them back on, it'll automatically resume. Not expected at this inexpensive price tag, but just wanted to mention that anyway. There's no ANC, active noise cancelling, on these headphones. It shouldn't be expected at this price tag. There's no transparency mode, so basically the microphones will turn on and force exterior sound into the headphones. That doesn't exist. When it comes to just passive noise cancelling, so just simply wearing them, even if no content is playing and people are in the same room as me talking, I can hear almost everything they're saying. Of course, it's slightly muffled because they're on the ear headphones, but I can make out what they're saying. So if you're traveling on a bus and you're listening to, say, news or a podcast, there's a lot of people talking around you, it's going to be very difficult to hear what's being said. So if that's the kind of content you're going to listen to while traveling often, I don't recommend these headphones. Sennheiser claims about 25 hours of usage on a single charge. In my multiple battery drain tests, I averaged out 27 hours, so very close to their claim. They also say it takes 3 hours to recharge these, which is a little too long. And in my testing, that is actually accurate. So the trade-off for recharge time for performance, not the best. The USB-C charging port is located on the bottom of the right ear cup. Okay, so we're gonna go through my usual microphone test. Everything here is through the 250BT microphone in a quiet environment right now. I'm gonna switch over to replicate a noisy environment with my camera microphone so you can get an idea how noisy it really is. And then we'll see if the 250BT can do a good job of isolating out a lot of the background noise. And then finally, we're gonna end it with a wind test. Okay, so right now we're in a noisy environment with my camera microphone. As you can tell, it's not that good and clear. Switching over to the 250BT microphone, I'll give you an idea of what it sounds like with all the background noise as I stop talking for a few seconds. And now lastly, we're replicating a wind test with the fan sitting about 5 feet away from me. And you guys can judge for yourself what you think about the wind cancellation. In terms of audio codecs, it supports SBC, AAC, and surprisingly aptX. Although this not all good news, and I'll explain why. So out of the box, like typical Sennheiser tradition, everything is well balanced, bass, mids, and highs. One is not too strong compared to the other. Of course, if you listen to, say, hip hop, the bass will perform a little bit higher compared to the others, but that's usually expected. Now, when it comes to adjusting with the equalizer in the app, which I'll get into very shortly, performance is kind of weird. So increasing the bass, it can get deep. Not as good as, say, the Sony WH-CH520, which is in the same price bracket. Those can get much deeper and better. Actually, they're overall better headphones than these. Might want to check that out instead of this. Anyway, going back to these, it can get rather deep but not punchy, like subwoofer deep, if you will. When it comes to increasing mids, it does almost nothing at all. It doesn't matter what type of genre of music I've tested numerous kinds, it does almost nothing. When it comes to increasing the highs, it does tweak it up higher. Nothing that's too piercing and annoying for my ears, thankfully. So it gives a bit of more energy to the music. Okay, so diving into the app, as you can see, it's very minimalistic. There's not much to go on here, but let's dive into the main thing most people are interested in. It's the equalizer, which is also pretty bare bones. It has bass, mids, and treble, highs. Honestly, not a big deal. You can get some pretty good performance if the manufacturer does a good job of this simplified equalizer, but just sliding up and down. You can, of course, set some custom presets if you want to at the top. And we'll go back. Now, if you go to sound check, what this basically does is let you play a song you're listening to and then make you go through kind of like a sound check test. So let's go through quickly. And it'll make you go through these kind of like sound checks several times. And then from here, it'll automatically adjust the equalizer to what it thinks is the best way for you. So something like this, right? The problem here is that if I adjust the equalizer ever so slightly, it disappears, right? And then if you go back here, it's all reset. So I honestly found that sound check doesn't even work that often. I find it to be more of a gimmick than anything else. Going over to Discover, these are kind of like almost like ads from Sennheiser, so worth ignoring. And settings is the main last function you want to look at because here you can get firmware updates if they're available. And basically what you'll see at the home screen, you can turn the tiles on and off, and that's pretty much it. Now, if you haven't shopped around, most people think that, if you look past the discomfort, it's not that bad, right? Honestly, as I mentioned earlier, you might want to consider the Sony WH-CH 520. I'll put a link to that review in the video description. They are in the same price bracket as these headphones and vastly superior in almost every way. Definitely worth checking out instead of these ones. I'm disappointed by Sennheiser. This one might be a pass for you. So that's the end of this review. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be checking my social links in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.